This episode is sponsored by ORGAIN. Looking for an easy way to improve your health and eating habits? Check out ORGAIN's 30-gram shakes, full of protein-packed real nutrition designed to satisfy your cravings. They're a great source of complete protein with all 9 essential amino acids to give you energy while maintaining hunger and helping you maintain a healthy lifestyle. Plus, ORGAIN shakes are made with no artificial ingredients or sweeteners and only 1 gram of sugar.
ORGAIN 30-gram protein shakes are available at ORGAIN.com. If you want to get in on the delicious protein-packed nutrition today, head to ORGAIN.com/command and use code COMMAND for 20% off your order.
Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Command Zone podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Weeks.
I'm Jimmy Wong.
How's it? It's Josh Lee Kwai.
And today we are drafting. Well, fantasy drafting. If it is your first time joining us for a draft episode, it's not a magic draft exactly. We're fantasy drafting magic cards of a certain type category.
Yeah.
This time we let our patrons vote on what we're going to draft, and they voted for mana rocks.
Ooh.
So today we're going to be drafting our very favorite mana rocks, but there's a twist.
They have to be 3 or more mana.
Yeah, otherwise we're going to be here all day drafting
Arcane Signet. Is it Signet?
Talisman of Curiosity. Talisman of Dominance.
Hearthstone.
Yeah, to keep it interesting, we're doing mana rocks 3 mana and up, of course. We're going to be talking about a lot of cards today. Maybe you're going to want to add some of these cards to your deck. Go to cardkingdom.com/command to check out their amazing inventory of magic cards. They've got tons of products sealed and more. So whether you're stocking up on something from an old set or something that's coming out, or perhaps you just heard a card that you're really inspired by and you want to add to your commander deck, go to cardkingdom.com/command today. Order from their awesome inventory. You get all of your cards in a single convenient package. That way, when it arrives on your doorstep, you can sleeve it up, put it in your deck, or just build your deck just like that, put in some basic lands, and you are good to go. Now, of course, I mentioned you're also helping out this show by using that affiliate link. So cardkingdom.com/command, the place to go.
And of course, once you get those cards, you want to keep them protected. ULTRAPRO is the game accessories brand we trust our own collections to here at the Command Zone. If you go to ultrapro.com/command, you can get all kinds of cool deals because they're running specials on their website all the time. Plus, you can check out the products that have the artwork from the newest set, which would be Duskmourn at the moment. Foundation's coming up. Ooh. And then, of course, they have their awesome Mana 8 line, which is a really classy and fancy looking line of products that have the mana symbols on white.
Yeah.
And these are some of my favorite products right now just because they look the coolest when they're down on your battlefield. So again, ultrapro.com/command.
And the final way to support us is directly by going to patreon.com/commandzone. All of our patrons get access to game nights and extra turns a day early without ads. Plus, you get to hang out in our Discord, talk to me, Josh, Jimmy, everyone on our team. When new precons come out, we'll chat about how you're upgrading each precon, and you get to ask questions about the latest episode or just what we think about our deck.
Or when cards get banned and you want to know what we think about it.
Yeah, we've been having some very heated conversations in the Discord, so you can get in there on that conversation by becoming a patron. Plus, we shout out one lucky patron every single podcast episode, and this one is dedicated to Josiah Barron. Josiah, you rock.
You rock.
All right, let's get into our main topic here, which is the best mana rocks that are 3 mana or more.
Yeah, we've all prepared a draft order of mana rocks that we like, and we're going to draft them in a serpentine formation, starting on one end, and then reversing all the way back, so it's as fair as possible for if drafting 5, that is.
And the stakes are high. We sort of have this idea that the only cards that we talk about today are the only mana rocks that we can ever build with forever. So that's sort of like the idea. High stakes.
That's kind of how we want to think about it in our minds when we're making our picks, is as if like the ones I take are the only ones I can use, and I can't use the ones everybody else takes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to keep us honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've done a bunch of episodes about these in the past. We've done equipment, some others. Our patrons, Planeswalkers. Our patrons voted today on what we would be doing. So that's another benefit of joining the Patreon, is you get to contribute to the podcast as well.
That is true.
And we have a couple of limitations for this one, right? Just to clarify what this is going to look like. So we're not considering the altars, Phyrexian, Ashnods, or otherwise.
No.
We're not considering cost reducers, so any of the medallions and things like that. Mm-hmm. And then we're not talking about mana doublers either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doubling cube.
Cage Sun, that kind of
Sun,
stuff.
yeah,
Those
yeah.
are sort of fit into a different category.
They need to tap and it says add mana. Those words together.
All right. Without further ado, Jimmy, you are going to be going number 1 here.
The
So
luck
with
has
his first
shined upon
pick
me.
in the 2024 Best Man Rocks over 3 mana draft, Jimmy Wong selects.
I'm so happy because I actually got to choose a 2-mana rock.
You're right.
Sucks to be you all because I'm taking the Great Henge.
No.
Oh, it feels so good to be able to take this card because I'm number 1. It is the greatest henge. 7 green, costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So oftentimes 2 green, 1 green, or just green. You can tap it to add green and gain 2 life. And then whenever a non-token creature you control enters, you put a 1/1 counter on it and you draw a card.
This card is absurd, and it was like the easiest number 1 of
Yeah.
all time.
The only one that I knew was going to be number 1 on everybody's.
Yeah.
I didn't even write it down because I was like, I'm not going first.
It's not, yeah.
It's absurd. And
The
it does-
absurd hand.
It does put me into, of course, green, but you know what? This is just one of those cards that every time it lands, either on your battlefield or the opponent's, it instantly swings the game's favor towards that person. It's got everything. Life gain, it makes your creatures bigger, and you get a card draw. Wild.
Yeah, that one's absurd. Plus, like, if you have a 7-power creature, it's functionally free because it
Yeah.
makes 2 green
but
right away.
What do you think you pay for it on average, mana-wise?
3, I think. 3 or 4.
Yeah, if it's in the deck, I think you're probably paying 4 for it.
But even
I
if
feel
you're
like
paying-
I've never paid 4 for it. It's always 3 or less. It's
Yeah.
often 2.
I'm fine paying 4 for
All my
it,
creatures
though,
are
right?
smaller.
We used to play Hedron Archive all the time in this format, and paying 4 for a card like this
Yeah.
is still
Easy. Oh,
totally
easy.
Guardian
Fine.
Project.
Yeah, it's
that
Guardian
draws
Project.
The ramps.
And the best part is it doesn't even care if you're using the Great Henge to play the creature that draws the card. It's just whenever a non-token creature enters under your control. So that's just wild. Like, there's so many ways, we talk about this all the time, ways that Nadu could have been taken down a notch in like 15 different categories. The Great Henge has like 6 different levers that it's pulling that are all overpowered.
Yeah, why does it have a cost reducer on it?
Yeah. If this had cost just 5 mana, like 3 green, it would still be very
It would
good.
still be very powerful. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right. Well, Jimmy got the gimme.
Yeah,
I'm just going to relax for the rest of the episode.
Well, you got like 4 picks until it's yours
Yeah.
again. So.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got some good answers up here. I think I'm going second this time, so I will be choosing for my first round draft pick, Midnight Clock.
Yeah.
Midnight Clock.
That was my number
This
2.
is 2 and a blue for a mana rock that adds blue. You can pay 2 and a blue to put hour counters on Midnight Clock, and it says at the beginning of each upkeep, put an hour counter on it. When the 12th counter is put on it, shuffle your hand and your graveyard into your library, and then draw 7 cards. Exile it.
This is a card that was underrated when it came out,
Yeah.
and now is just like, yeah, it goes in most blue decks, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Especially mono blue, yeah.
this is the kind of rock that I'm always like hesitate to put into a deck where I'm like, it's 3 mana, it's kind of expensive, and then you play with it and you're like, I just draw 7, just me. Like, I
Yeah.
just reload my whole hand.
Off my mana rock?
Like,
Yeah.
it gets in
Yeah.
bananas.
I've seen people waste premium removal on Midnight Clocks.
Yeah.
Because it's just such a
it's-
threat.
Especially in a control deck where like you go sort of 1 for 1 for things
Yeah.
and then reload your hand. I mean, I played a lot of Brawl, and Rusko Clockmaker puts a
yeah.
token copy of this thing into play, and it's
Absurd.
ridiculous. So gotta have Midnight Clock. I think this is one of the 3 mana rocks that I'm most excited to put in a deck these days.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think this plays into the philosophy of how you determine whether a 3 mana or more rock is worthy of playing in a deck. It's like, does it do another thing
Yeah.
that is good and you do want to have done? Both of your picks have card draw also on theirs, which makes sense.
Yep.
I think Midnight Clock was underrated because it wasn't clear at first how likely the card draw would come into effect. It seemed when you read it the first time like, probably not, that's not going to happen. And then you see it in play and you play with it and you're like, no, it happens all the time.
The only decks where it's not good are like graveyard synergy decks because you don't want to necessarily be shuffling your graveyard
Sure.
in. But otherwise, I mean, this is just great. 3 turn rotations, every upkeep you can counter on it. Pretty nice.
One thing I want to do with each of the cards this time, which we were done sporadically in the past, is I want to make sure we check the temperature of the other 2 people of where they had that card. So
yeah.
Great Henge, I also had a number 1.
Yeah, I had a
I'm
number 1,
assuming you did, Rachel. Where did you have Midnight Clock, Jimmy?
Number 2.
Okay. I had it at number 3.
Don't you like blue, Joe?
I love
What's
blue.
going on?
I love blue, yeah.
there
That's why
are
I was at number 3.
Could've-
3 is
could've-
hot.
there
could've
are a lot of
wheeled
other
it.
good options though, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot at this level, so I'm curious to see what your first round pick is.
Well, you're about to find out.
Yeah, it is time.
Because I get the third and the fourth pick. I'll start with the third one because that's how numbers work. And I'm going to go with Relic of Legends.
Ah, dang it.
Yeah, that was my...
Wait, I have no idea why I said dang it. There's no way that was making it around.
I think this one is an easy pick based on your other two picks.
Yeah.
And it fits that criteria of like it does another thing. This one just creates more than 1 mana. Often minimum 2, but often 3, 4, 5 mana for its 3 mana investment. So like every deck has a legendary creature, and I play a lot of decks. I don't attack a lot. So I play a lot of decks where unless my commander has a tap ability, it's not really there to attack. So having it provide mana is the sort of the next best thing it could be doing besides whatever its abilities are.
Yeah.
And so I find Relic of Legends floor to be really, really low and the ceiling super high, because if you just happen to have 10, 15 other legendary creatures, then all of a sudden it's kind of like Cryptolith, right? Mm-hmm. But it taps for mana on its own as well.
And it's 1 mana of any color, too, which makes it very powerful.
I mean, 10 or 15 legendary creatures, you're cooking. But it's like...
It's not that hard, though, these days. There's so many legendary creatures, and so many of the good creatures from every set are legendary that it's like... I often look down, I'm like, well, I got 8.
Yeah, I mean...
Plus my commander, and it's like...
Yeah.
Then on those situations, you cast Relic of Legends sometimes, and it costs you basically 0 mana.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many cool tricks you can do with this too, like all of the new survival creatures. You can tap those down.
Oh, yeah.
Or you can tap down like Magda. There's a lot of, like, I have it
It's
in...
goaded or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have it in my Norin deck, and Norin enters every turn untapped, so I can make a mana every single turn with it, which is really cool.
Yeah.
The Rona card that untaps when you play legendaries.
Yeah, so you get multiple... Yeah, exactly. It doesn't give them the tap ability, so the summoning sickness doesn't matter. Like, that's a really big thing,
Yeah,
This card's
really
only going to get better over time, too, because clearly we're over-indexed, right? We've gotten more and more legendary creatures pretty much every year now, right?
Yeah.
Seems
I mean,
like
I think
it's only
it
gonna
was
get
last
better.
year or something that there was almost 1 per day of the year or something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just tons of legendaries. Love that card. All right,
Very
going
good.
to number 4, and we were talking about this before we recorded. I feel like there's a gap between these first 3 and then everything else. And I feel like a lot of these other ones, I'm not as sad, but I was like, I hope, you're going to get one of the top 3. I think we all did correctly with the top 3.
Yay.
So my next one I'm less sure about. There's a bunch that are kind of close to tied. I think I'm going to go the boring route, though.
I think I know what it is.
And I'm going to say Thran Dynamo.
Oh.
I know the other boring one as well.
Interesting.
That maybe you'll pick late next, Jimmy.
Okay.
Yeah, and the thing I like about Thran Dynamo, and hey, it's a 4 mana rock, so we got there. Or something,
Yeah.
is the rate's really good. So when you look at other things that cost 4 mana, they mostly give you 2 mana. Even if you just look at baseline like Explosive Vegetation or something, Sky Shards claim, I guess, since they come in untapped.
Yeah.
And most rocks that cost 4 give you 2 mana, but they're colored.
Right.
Yeah, whereas Thran Dynamo gives you 3. So it kind of only costs 1 mana if you think about it. If you can use the 3 when you first cast it, which puts it very similar to like a Thought Vessel or a Mind Stone. Obviously, it doesn't have those secondary abilities, but as far as like you spend some mana, but you get some back immediately, and then the net outcome, I guess the net loss is 1 mana.
Yeah.
And of course, it's very, very good if you can untap it. And this is where rocks that tap for more than 1 mana become really good, because they turn your Cures followers and things like that into also tapping for multiple mana, whereas like a 2 mana rock or a 1 mana rock that only taps for 1 can't give you that same advantage. So I do like having access to a rock that can tap for multiple mana, and I think Thran Dynamo is just kind of the best of those. Again, it has the color restriction, which I think is bad, but anything that gives you 3 colored mana is going to cost 5+, and that's sort of a different category.
Yeah.
I didn't have Thran Dynamo on my list, and I think it's just because it's a card I continue to underrate. It goes really, really well with 2 mana ramp, which is why I like Thran Dynamo a lot. If you're in like a big mana deck and you know that you're playing all the 2 mana ramp, then you can get your Thran Dynamo down on 3, and then you untap with 1,000,000 mana. Right?
Especially if you go turn 3 Thrawn, tap it, put another rock out.
Yeah.
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 And those, like, we see it the most, I think, in artifact decks that can abuse it the most. But even in just big mana type of decks where you need to explode into the next phase of the game as soon as possible, I think Thran Dynamo is a little underrated.
It's a good one. It's a powerful one.
All right, Jimmy,
It's me.
It's
Rachel.
sorry. Snake.
I'm in the middle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm still taking a nap.
We're in order here. I didn't even think about it.
That's true. We did not do that on purpose. We're so
point.
clever.
Everyone listening to the audio version is like, what are you talking about?
All right. My second pick of the draft is a little contentious, but I'm going to argue it's a mana rock.
Oh.
It's controversial.
I'm going to take Inspiring Statuary.
Oh.
Inspiring Statuary is a 3-mana artifact that gives your non-artifact spells improvise.
Okay.
It, of course, is an artifact, so it taps for 1 colorless for your non-artifact spells.
Oh,
But it also makes all of your other artifacts tap for to your non-artifact spells. So I think that this is fully a mana rock.
We need to have a talk,
Interesting.
Rachel.
This taps for 1 mana.
It does. You're right. It does tap itself once it comes down.
Yes.
Interesting.
I mean, I will admit. Actually, Jimmy, we didn't get where you had Threatened Dynamo on your list.
It wasn't on my list.
Okay.
Because I had another one.
I will
now
admit,
that I think about it,
I
may
didn't have Inspiring Statuary on my list and didn't even consider it as a mana rock. I didn't.
Yeah.
But I also will say I didn't think of it and then
And like
remove
say
it
that
from
now.
consideration. It just didn't occur to me that it might be a mana rock.
I saw it on an image list of like mana rocks, and I went, "Nah, that's not a mana rock."
Oh, I think it is. I mean,
I can see the argument for it.
Yeah. Commenters, you can let us know
Yeah.
if Rachel is completely out of line or not.
like doing a little naughty.
It is a little naughty, yeah.
Inspiring Statuary obviously is a ridiculously powerful card in very narrow strategies. If you're making a ton of food tokens, if you're making a ton of clue tokens, it makes all of your food and clues tap for your non-artifact spells. So I play it mostly in those kind of junk type decks, but I've also seen it in I don't know, it's a hard one to put in artifact decks where you want to make a ton of artifacts, so it does have this sort of push and pull.
That's a card that I've always felt reads a little better than it is. It's really good where it's good, but it's not as broad as I initially thought it was going to be for the precise reasons you said.
Yeah.
Decks that have a lot of artifacts, well, it can't use Inspiring Statuary.
Right.
And decks that have a lot of spells that they could cast with Inspiring Statuary don't always have a lot of artifacts. Yeah, you generally want to be making clues, treasures, food. You want to be making...
Those decks are generally built around like legends or around creatures or spells and less built around casting artifacts.
Yeah.
So it is a very, very narrow card, but I think the direction that card design has gone, Inspiring Statuary has only gotten better and better. And if I'm playing those decks, I want access to it. So
It's very good.
All right. It was not on my list, clearly.
yeah. Doing tiny cheats.
It's like
Wheat
she
cheats.
drafted somebody like out of a foreign league or like out of high school or directly out of high
can
school.
take them?
Who our scouts weren't even like on their radar.
Like some Brazilian footballer or
exactly.
something that you're like, wait, you could what?
Yeah, our whole like scout turned and said, "Who?"
You're like, wait,
And then
I don't
the
have
GM
it. I
said,
don't know
"You were
this
all
guy."
fired."
Yeah. How did you not see this? All right. So you
All
got
right.
Midnight Clock and Inspiring Statue 0, 1, and 2. Josh, you have Relic of Legends into Thran Dynamo.
Jimmy, you have great hinge.
And I'm going to go, well, I do have the next 2 picks, so it doesn't really matter what I choose here. But for all the people, I think, screaming in their rooms going, why haven't this been drafted yet? I'm going to say Basalt Monolith
Yep.
as my number 2. Because it just has the capability of going infinite like about 30,000 different ways.
Yeah.
It's all the same way.
It's all the same way, yeah.
But yeah,
yeah.
that was what I was considering with Thran Dynamo. I was like one of the two.
Yeah. I do like the rate on it's great, right? 3 mana already adds 3 colorless the moment it comes down. It doesn't untap, but of course you can pay 3 to untap it, and any way of reducing that cost nets you mana, and as a result, there's a bunch of different things that you can do with that infinite mana. It was like one of the earliest sort of like infinite combos I was introduced to when we started playing Magic and started playing Commander. And it's just a great card. We've seen it in precons. It's been reprinted a bunch of times. I just like it a lot, and that's it. That's all there is to it.
Has very limited downside because it allows you to just put 3 mana on layaway till next turn a lot of times, even if you don't have the combo. Although if you've got the combo in your deck, you probably are sandbagging that until you've kind of...
You have it, and you can play it.
You don't want to put the Basalt Monolith at risk, so you don't play it until Keenan's coming out the same turn or whatever. But yeah. But one of the more probably powerful cards ever made as far as like the amount of things it combos with. So definitely, if you've played Commander for very long, you've died to some Basalt Monolith combo many times.
Yeah. I mean, not to mention, it's just a free spell, right? It just gives you what you've invested back.
Yeah. And you could just pay the mana to untap itself as many times as you want to if there's some reason your deck wants to do that.
Yeah. I mean, there's even just like if you have untapped triggers,
Yeah.
I guess you can go nuts with Basalt Monolith.
Right.
I actually didn't have this one on my list. It's not...
Because you replaced it with Inspiring Statuary, right?
Yeah. I think it's the kind of card that I wouldn't play if I'm not playing with the combo. And the combo is not like is not of the power level that I play the most. Like, I don't think I'm just going to throw Basalt Monolith in any deck because it sets off alarm bells, which isn't exactly what I want my mana rocks to do. But it is strictly one of the most powerful. I mean, arguably the most powerful 3-mana rock of all time.
Probably, because we didn't come up with any on our list that would have been chosen already. I think.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah, I that's why I didn't pick it.
Yeah.
I picked Random instead. Although I definitely do play a lot of untappy decks, and Basalt Monolith is good there even if you don't have combo.
Right.
So like in my Shurikai deck that has Unwinding Clock and some other things, I'll still play Basalt Monolith because it's Throne Dynamo basically, but for 1 less mana.
Yeah.
So I think you don't have to combo with it for it to be good, but for it to be at its best, obviously you would play combo, which I don't do a lot, which is why I didn't choose it. But yeah, I think there are ways to play it without combo. And it's nice actually to put it out, get some use out of it, and they feel like they have to destroy it. And
That's
you're
true.
like, cool, you're not destroying my Shurikai or whatever. So,
Yeah.
That's fair. All right.
So that's me.
This draft is just getting started. That is round 1 and round 2, but we still have 3 more rounds to go. Stick around to find out what rocks we pick next.
Hey, Josh, what you brewing?
A health deck.
Don't you mean life gain?
Nope. I'm trying to eat healthier, but I'm a better deck brewer than I'm a meal planner, so health deck.
Well, you could start by cutting this Korean barbecue card.
What? No way. God, this is tough. It's hard to cut the things I like, but the healthy stuff is expensive. It just totally throws off my curve.
Well, if you want some easy and inexpensive tech, check out ORGAIN. I've been loving their new 30-gram protein shakes as a way to get more nutrition. They help me manage my hunger and maintain a more healthy lifestyle. Even if you're not a bodybuilder, protein is still key to a healthy diet, and ORGAIN shakes actually taste really good without a ton of sugar or artificial sweeteners.
Whoa, that is good. Nice. Easy upgrade.
Wait, this isn't food, this is Ristic Study. Why is this in here?
For card draw? Duh.
ORGAIN 30-gram protein shakes are available at Orgain.com. If you want to get in on the delicious protein-packed nutrition today, head to Orgain.com/command and use code command for 20% off your order. Once again, that's Orgain.com/command for 20% off, and make sure to use our promo code command so they know we sent you.
You know what's wild?
What?
I have like hundreds of Magic cards memorized, right? Name, cost, rules, text, but the moment I have to remember like 3 passwords, I'm cooked.
That's why all my passwords are just pay the one.
Dude, we're recording this.
Oh crap, I'm ruined.
Don't worry, it'll be fine because we can use 1Password to get you back up and running. 1Password's award-winning password manager is the best way to keep your business's data and login credentials secure. You can set strong, unique passwords for all your accounts without relying on memorization or post-it notes. And 1Password makes security easy for your whole team. It's super user-friendly with simple, secure sharing. Plus, it's seamless to switch between devices. Whether you need access from your phone or laptop, it's always a breeze, especially with features like autofill for quick sign-ins. Best of all, once you don't have to remember your passwords anymore, you won't accidentally say them on camera.
Yeah, I wish I'd been using 1Password this whole time. This seems great. Okay, my new password is Ristic.
No, cut the tape!
Right now, our listeners get a free 2-week trial at onepassword.com/commandzone for your growing business. That's 2 free weeks at onepassword.com/commandzone.
Don't let security slow your business down. Go to onepassword.com/commandzone.
All right, my new deck list is complete. Now, let's see which cards I don't already own and buy them.
Wait, how'd you do that without going through a million boxes?
Oh, I just use ARCHIDEKT. They make it super easy to upload and manage your collection. Then, when you're done brewing a deck, you can sort it by collection status to see what you already have.
So this group is just cards you don't own.
Yep, I just click buy this stack, and it takes me right to Card Kingdom.
Whoa.
ARCHIDEKT is the best place to browse, brew, and playtest commander decks. Just go to archidekt.com/commandzone to get started.
That's ARCHIDEKT.com/commandzone.
All right, we are back, everybody, picking our favorite best mana rocks, 3 mana and up. So far, I've gotten the Great Henge and Basalt Monolith, and I'll be moving now to pick number 3. And I'm going to change the order of my pick because I'm pretty sure none of you are going to take the next card I have on my list. I'm going to take one that I think maybe you all have so that you can't take it.
It's strategy.
Gamesmanship.
Strategy.
Yeah, this is
High stakes here,
another,
everybody.
another very commonly played mana rock, and it is Commander's Sphere. So you tap this to add a mana of any color in your commander's color identity, similar to Command Tower. And then, of course, at any time you can sacrifice it to draw a card. I just like the draw card ability on this. It's obviously not 3 mana for 1, and that's its baseline. But I really do like the fact that you can cash this in later in. We've seen so many times when the Mind Stone, that 1 card draw, someone activating it, you go, oh gosh, I really hope they don't get what they need here. So I like anything that can give you that just tiny extra bit amount of like, maybe I'll draw into something that saves my butt. So that's Commander Sphere for me. That's why it will be my 3rd pick.
I know popularity-wise, it might be like the most popular mana rock on EDH Rec, something like that. And it comes in a lot of precons, which I think helps it in the popularity category. But still, I did not have it on my list at all.
Oh.
I know that's sacrilegious. I'm sorry.
Rachel shook her head for those watching audio. She did not have it either.
I did not have Commander Sphere, which is sacrilegious considering.
Well, you didn't buy statuary, so.
Yeah. I love it when you two pick cards that are not on my list because it feels like
free value.
Free value.
I don't like Commander Sphere much myself. I never find that card draw to be worth the extra mana. I'd rather just have a signet or something.
Yeah.
I think I've seen Commander Sphere best deployed recently in decks that can make a ton of copies of artifacts.
Yeah, that's the one place that's really good.
Yeah, so if you can, I saw it in
Doppelganger.
Yeah, sure.
Oh my god.
The one I was thinking of is the Boros guy that taps to make 2 copies of something.
Oh, Lorehold guy?
Oscar.
There we go. Where it's like, you can get 2 rocks. It float that 2 mana. It puts itself in the graveyard. You get the 2 cards back. It starts to feel really, really good when you can do loops with it and you can get repeatable value out of that draw. So there's definitely decks where I've seen it overperform, but a lot of the time I do think it just goes into decks where people play it like a manolith.
Yeah.
That they can sacrifice if like all the artifacts get blown up or something like that.
Yeah, definitely with synergy, that card draw becomes really good because you don't have to pay any mana to do it, whereas Mind Stone does cost mana. That's a big limiter if you're playing Oscar or something, obviously, where it's like, it's way better to make the copies and then just immediately be able to sack them and draw than to have to invest in additional mana.
Yeah. There's some really cool things you can do with that card. I just haven't built the artifact deck where it feels...
wow, I wasted the pick. What am I doing?
I know.
So we went Great Henge into Midnight Clock, into Relic of Legends, into Thran Dynamo, into Inspiring Statuary, into Basalt Monolith, into Commander Sphere.
Yeah, that's a big drop off.
A lot of them no one had on their lists, which is Commander Sphere and Inspiring Statuary, right?
Yeah, this next pick is very tricky because there is sort of a lot that live at the same level.
Yeah.
But I think people really...
There's one I hope you pick so I don't have to pick it.
I'm gonna take Cursed Mirror.
Wait, that's the one you thought neither of us were gonna pick?
I don't know,
Cursed
man.
Mirror's so good, Jimmy.
I don't know.
Cursed Mirror is 2 and a red. When it enters, you can have it become a copy of any creature on the battlefield until end of turn, except it has haste.
I done goofed.
I mean, this card's just great. You get the ETB on any creature. Like if an opponent has something, you can steal that. You can have 1 turn of a busted creature. Yep. You can do some really neat stuff with Cursed Mirror, especially if you're welding it in and out and in and out. There's a lot of cool utility to this card that I do find is worth the extra mana to have it be a rock. Mm-hmm. So I think of it like a clone. In the decks that I put it in, I think I would categorize it a clone over ramp.
Yeah. Interesting.
And the ramp is upside. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I've always played I agree with everything you said about the card, and it was actually at number 7. What did you have it, Jimmy? You must have had it at 7.
I had it at number 4 for me. It was right after Basalt Monolith, but I was like, someone's going to take Commander Sphere.
Yeah, but overall, because that would be your pick 4. But
overall, it was number 4. I had Great Henge, Midnight Clock, Relic, and then Cursed Mirror.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I had about the same place you did, Rachel. Yeah. But I just played on 3 if you need to.
Yeah.
Because I'd rather just get the acceleration, like have access to more mana for longer in the game, because that's a compounding advantage, right?
Yep.
But yeah, so often you're just like, cool, get this off. Because one of the bad things about mana rocks is you draw them late and they're not as good, and sometimes just bad.
Right.
And this mitigates that by quite a lot, because the earlier in the game you get the extra mana, and the later in the game you get access to whatever the coolest thing is, and there's likely to be more cool things later in the game.
Yeah.
Definitely have killed people with it or gotten killed with it, right? Because they play something awesome and you're actually getting to use the awesome thing before they do because they didn't have haste.
Right.
So it's like, play Blightsteel, and you're like, normally that would suck, but actually
I get it 1 now.
And it can attack,
what
right?
a nightmare.
Yeah.
3 mana
I've died to that. So
Yeah.
I'm happy if I'm like, this ETBs and draws a card.
Yeah.
Oh, I've definitely been like, play this, make it into Blightsteel, remove your Blightsteel, attack you and kill you. That's what you get.
Crap. It did not go well.
I gave you the tool to kill me. Card's really good.
Yeah.
I can't believe you thought that it was gonna.
I don't know.
Panicked.
He's
I
like,
panicked,
I'm the only one that plays
I
red.
really
Yeah. That was kind of my mentality.
I
but
really
yeah,
assumed it was not going to come back to me, but
Well, this sucks because
Happy to
now I
pick it
think
up.
I have to take the card that I'm on record as like
Yep.
not liking. But I will admit to being like half wrong about it. I do think it's like quite bad in a lot of circumstances where people do play it. But
Chromatic Lantern?
Yeah. No, that card's bad. But it has the word chromatic in
It
it.
does have the word chromatic in it, yeah.
But I think with the points where it's good enough that I have to admit that like it's not as good as Posty thinks it is, but it is better than I thought it was, and it's chromatic orrery.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Yeah. And there's enough decks. Like if I were to look at this list, I probably have it in more decks than Thran Dynamo. It's probably pretty close.
Yeah.
And that'd be like 3. But in the decks where it is good, it's very, very good. And I think for similar reasons, because if I'm untapping artifacts,
Yeah.
it becomes insane. And the
Except for
ability
5 pretty much of any color.
and draws you cards and like it becomes nuts with a little synergy. But I do think a lot of people play it without that synergy, and then it is bad. But when you've got the synergy, it's really powerful and causes an extreme amount of explosivity. And I've definitely won games just off the back of like, hey, I can just use this 3 times. That's just enough to win. And so I gotta like put my head down in shame a little bit and say this card's better than I thought it was, and I will pick it at number
3.
this is my number 3, and was this pick number 9 overall?
Yeah.
I did not have Chromatic Orrery on my list.
Oh, really? Mine was right up after now my first 7 picks are all out, and Chromatic Orrery was my 7th, yeah.
I don't know. If I have 7 mana, I'm not really worried about making more. I don't do the kind of decks that are like, I'm going to cast something for 1,000,000 mana and draw my whole deck. So I just never think to put it in my deck. If I have 7 mana, I'm casting a creature.
It's a good safety
But it
valve.
is very
though.
good.
Yeah, it's a good safety valve though of like, hey, my deck creates a lot of mana, but sometimes it doesn't have a ton of things to do with it. And instead of putting in another creature, which wouldn't be good under a lot of circumstances, I can put this thing in because it either creates the mana to do the really big thing or gives me cards so that I don't get stuck.
Yeah.
That's how I think about deck building. And like I say, I think a lot of people play it in bad situations where there's not a lot of synergy. So it is a card that I think when it's good, but when it's bad. And you just have to be careful because if you think it's one and it turns out to be the other, you're in trouble.
You're in trouble, yeah.
The decks that I see it where it shines the most is when you have some way to cheat it into play, usually.
Yeah.
If you can like sneak it into play, you can weld it, or you can reduce the casting cost, it feels so busted.
Yeah, it's really good when you sneak it in. I think there's plenty of decks though that can just straight up cast it. And again, it's one of those things where if you use the mana the turn you cast it, it didn't actually cost that much. And if you already have an untap way on board, then you actually can often be again in Shurkai or something like that, up mana on just cast it, tap it, untap it, tap it. I'm up mana. Yeah.
And the fact that you can change the colorless mana to mana of any color. So it's not like a Gilded Lotus where it's only 1 mana of one specific color. It's 5 mana divided however you choose color-wise.
Yeah.
So that does make all of your other mana rocks that do tap for colorless even better. Okay.
Okay.
We get 2 in a row here, Josh.
Yeah, so my 4th pick and the 10th pick overall. This one's tough.
This one's, at this point, now it's like, who knows?
Well, my next pick is very similar to, my next one on the list is very similar to Relic of Legends, so I don't know that I need it.
Yeah. I know what it is. I feel it.
And then my next pick after that is a little similar to Thran Dynamo, so I don't know if I need that. Okay, I'm going to go off the reservation a little bit here, just based on how the picks have gone already, and I'm going to pick one that's kind of... I don't even know if either of you will have this. I'm going to pick Glittering Stockpile.
Oh,
I didn't
did
have
not
this one. I had to look this up.
It's good.
Yeah.
So I played with it and against it a few times, and it's really good when it's good. I've won games and I've lost games to it, but it compounds the mana rock problem of if you draw it late.
Yeah.
So this is the one that gets counters as you use it, and then you can cash it in to get as much mana as you have counters on it.
Red mana specifically, right?
Yeah. So if you get it early, it's like acceleration, and somewhere around turn 7 or 8, or maybe 9, you're like, okay, now it gives me 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Which doesn't sound like a lot, but I think I've talked about my philosophy on Commander a lot, and I do believe that most games are ended by like a very big explosive turn, and this kind of allows you to get that big explosive turn, so it works like a ritual when you do it that way. And I've definitely like got a few decks that like forks and things like that. And this is just like, okay, I just got to get to 9 mana, and this will let me do it when they don't see that as a real possibility, because people don't tend to like, they don't know when you're going to catch this thing out. They don't know if you're trying to get to 7 or 10. There's obviously synergies with proliferate and untapping it.
Yeah.
Which are both, well, I don't proliferate as much, but I do like to untap things. So yeah, I've definitely also played it where it's just a 3-mana rock the whole game, it's only there for like 2 turns or something, and you never really get it up to the point, and then it feels kind of bad in those spots.
Yeah.
So I think
you get this early and it just starts putting those piles on, you have to be like, uh-oh, that player could be doing something
You're
big.
just ready to go for the win ahead of the other players. Like if you're in a race to get to a certain amount of mana where like, hey, I can do the big thing that's going to either actually end the game or virtually end it.
Yeah.
And a lot of games I feel like just kind of do fall in that category. Then this lets you sort of predict where that is and then just burst forward. You hit your NOS,
Yeah.
at the right moment, just ahead of the other players. And it's not the easiest card to play, but definitely
It's got that upside. I dig it.
I think it's better than most people think, but it also,
Yeah, I agree with that.
if you think it's bad, it is bad for the reasons you think.
Yeah.
That's like outside of the top 4 picks or whatever, that we can apply that phrase to almost every single mana rock we picked. Okay.
Oh gosh.
Rachel, it's your turn.
Up next.
How exciting.
I've got a couple here that I don't know if any of you have it, and I'm trying to just prioritize like which ones I want
You only
Yeah.
get
in
2
my list.
for your whole life.
I
after
know.
this, so.
Yeah, and I'm stuck without the cursed mirror, so don't do what I did.
There's a couple that I like that are very similar, but I'm going to pick the one that's a little bit more flexible.
Okay.
I'm going to take Throne of Eldraine.
Oh, not on my list.
Me neither.
5-mana legendary artifact. When it enters, you choose a color, and it taps to add 4 mana of the chosen color, but you can only use that mana on monocolored spells of that color. It also says 3 tap, draw 2 cards. Spend only mana of the chosen color to activate this ability. So it's a monocolored rock for the most part.
Yeah.
But it's it has a similar rate to a Thran Dynamo, where it's cost 5, it gives you 4 back, and it's a draw engine. And I think it just feels really good to have on the board because you're like, okay, if I need mana, I have mana, and if I need gas, I have gas. This isn't like an excellent rate to draw cards, but when you don't have the cards, you need them.
You need them, yeah.
So 3 mana, 2 cards, happy to cast a divination, especially when it comes attached to a pretty sweet mana rock.
Okay. Not on my
You have to
list.
tap the throne though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it actually costs you how much?
I mean,
4, I guess.
7 technically, but like if I don't have something to spend on it, then that mana means nothing to me.
Yeah, true. Wait, Throne of Eldraine creates 2, right?
5 and
4, no, it makes 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like you're tapping a lot of mana to do it, but if I don't have a way to spend that mana, then I'm happy to.
It's true. I
Yeah.
think if you don't have a way to spend 7 mana, you might have lost though.
Yeah.
I think this makes a lot of sense for your play style as well, Rachel,
Yeah.
because you have more monocolored decks
Yeah,
probably
that's
than
why
myself and Josh combined. Yeah.
I just glazer. Well, I have one
Monocolor.
monocolor deck out of my 27.
I love monocolored decks. I would
Yeah.
brew in monocolor forever.
I'm getting more towards that, but not enough to put Throne of Eldraine high on my list, I think.
Oh man.
Yeah, I didn't have it.
I think building monocolor is a real like deck building challenge, and it means that you get to play commanders that not a lot of people have thought about, and you have to figure out how to patch up holes that colors have. So if you haven't built monocolor, if you don't have Throne of Eldraine in a deck, I challenge you to, because it's a ton of fun.
It's a ton of fun. Mm-hmm. Okay, I get 2 in a row again. How exciting!
Captain 5 colors over here.
Yeah,
I
well,
go
just
the
chose
other
chromatic
direction.
order.
I go the other direction. I'm like, no,
Draw
I
a
want
card
to.
for
How can I
each
add a
color.
color to this?
Yeah. Oh man, now what am I gonna do? What am I going to do?
I know only 1 pick left makes me sad.
2 picks for
I
me
do have a
left.
couple
But in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a row. So I get to just do whatever I want, I guess. Okay, this one was pretty easy because if Relic of Legends is going to be gone, then I'm going to take the
I'm
second
surprised
best
it took
version.
so long to get to it.
I don't
too.
love this one as much.
It's Honor Worn Shaku. So it's a 3-mana artifact. You can tap it for a colorless. And this is why it's worse, is it's only colorless mana. But you can tap an untapped legendary permanent you control to untap the Honor Worn Shaku.
It is permanent as well, which I think does
So
matter.
you can do a land, which is silly.
You do planeswalkers.
You can do planeswalkers. There are
Equipment.
legendary
Legendary
artifacts.
artifacts,
Yeah, legendary enchantments. There's a lot more legendary cards that are coming out. Chromatic Ori. It doesn't make sense there. But yeah, this has the ability, again, to be very explosive. And if you have a permanent that doesn't care if it's being tapped or not and is doing nothing else, we see that with Inspiring Statuary. It's incredible when you tap like an equipment or whatever and it does something. Then this, for me, just has a lot of utility. And again, I think we're going to just see more legendary permanents as the game goes on. So this to me was an easy pick. It is later on my list because I didn't really know what to do after the first like 4 cards. Everything just kind of mashed into one pile.
You had it pretty high. I think it was my 6th overall.
Yeah.
And it was like, if I don't get Relic of Legends, then I think this does a pretty good impression of it.
It's a very good impression of Relic of Legends. But again, colorless only. But it has that potential when it comes down to tap for so much mana. So
I did not have Honor Worn Shaku on my list. I put it in decks before, and I usually end up taking it out.
it's one of those things that, again, the deck needs to really support it, I think.
Yeah, colorless mana is just tricky it's trickier to use than you think.
Yeah.
Especially in decks like I had it in a Planeswalker deck, which was,
Right.
you could use it, but I was like, if I have 3 Planeswalkers in play, like, I'm doing great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Super
chill.
Friends doesn't need this card because by the time you have enough Planeswalkers that this matters, like you said, if you have 2+ Planeswalkers in play, you're already winning.
You're doing fine.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I need 2 extra colorless mana right now. So I just haven't found the right home for it, but
Cool.
it's a cool one.
Okay.
All right, your final pick. This begins round 5.
This is pick number 13
I
overall.
only get 1 card left here. There's a lot of really good options.
We haven't really stated what happens to the cards that don't get picked at all. I think we just still have access
They
to all
stay in the
those.
public pool,
Yeah,
right?
public
Yeah.
pool,
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. I just want to make sure so that I can sleep
Who
at night.
even wants those?
Man.
They are the top 15, Josh.
I'm going to choose a card I've never actually put into a deck.
Okay.
So this is just theory crafting?
Yeah.
It's theory crafting,
Just
but
one
because
you
I
like.
just don't have any, and it's more a recent card, but it is the Sonic Screwdriver.
Oh.
You know what's funny? I have it on my list, kind of low, but I also don't have it in a deck. But
Yeah.
it reads good.
It reads so good, and I'm pretty sure it is good because it replaces your
expensive.
freaking Rogue's Passage or whatever. But it's a 3-mana artifact, taps for 1 mana of any color, but it has 3 other abilities on it. One of them is 1 tap it, untap another target artifact. We all know why that's great with the cards that we just talked about. You can pay 2 to tap it to scry 1, not a great rate, and then 3 tap it, make a creature unblockable this turn, which is like Rogue's Passage.
Yeah,
so
those 2 modes of untap an artifact and give something unblockable are real.
yeah, very much real. And I know for a fact that there's so many games I can just think of right now where having an unblockable ability gives you a win con. And so that to me is still very, very potent and very powerful. But yeah, I don't have any of my decks. I just see it and I read it and I go, this is great when it's really good. And at the very baseline, it's still just a 3-mana rock. So that's my number 5 pick.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
That's it.
10. It was my, I had it 12th on my list.
12th, yeah. But there's so
Did
many
you
other
have it,
cards
Rachel?
I could have
No,
chosen.
this one's not on my list.
There's a
I
lot
don't
of other
love
cards.
these 3-mana rocks that they just keep throwing abilities on. I would rather it do something. Like I think that's why we like.
Slot, Rachel. What are you
It
talking
doesn't
about?
do anything. You have to pay all that mana, and it just plays like a manalith, in my opinion.
To
Like,
me,
if I
One mana
have
to
that on
untap
the
an
board-
artifact, I think, is a great
That's-
rate.
Yeah,
like,
to me,
that's
the
good.
untap an artifact is the one where you look at and you go,
Yeah.
does my deck want that?
Yeah.
And if the answer to that's yes, then you can put it in.
Yeah.
And the unblockable is the gravy
That's
part. But if
gravy, yeah.
you can't play it for the unblockable just because it's so expensive.
No.
But that is a nice thing to have and does matter in games sometimes.
for
But
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't have this one on my list, but I remember when they were printed, we looked at them and we're like,
Maybe.
well, it
Pretty
does
sweet.
a lot.
Yeah,
It definitely
maybe.
does a lot.
Maybe.
Cool. I don't know.
Two
There's the
mana
other
to
one,
untap an
too.
artifact is actually a lot too. You wouldn't.
Yeah.
It's not a great rate.
Yeah.
But I think just having it in general, because you'll play, what are the Manifold Key or the other ones that
Yeah.
untap
Yeah.
artifacts. So like, right, you'll in the decks where it's good, like your Shorokai and all that stuff, it is a very powerful ability. I just like that I don't have to play Rogue's Passage anymore if I play a card like this. Because I wasn't really playing Rogue's Passage to begin with, but I'm always looking for at least one source of make something unblockable in the decks that care about it. So haven't played with it yet, but when I do play it, I'll let you know. Maybe it won't be on my list next time.
Actually, I think it's the only card on my whole list that I haven't played with, but it's funny that we both had that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's sweet.
All right. I got one more
All
pick.
right.
One more pick
for
it's
everyone,
pick number
right?
14 overall.
Make it count, Rachel.
I've got a couple that are really cool that I would like to pick, but I don't think I can leave this draft
Without picking.
Coveted Jewel.
I knew it. That was on my list too.
Coveted Jewel is one of the most fun Magic cards to abuse.
Yeah.
They often put it in precons that are like political in nature or like goaded to make your opponents attack each other. But I think Coveted Jewel is at its best when you can sack it and bring it back to the battlefield and cheat it into play and clone it and blink it and
every time.
Yeah, because it's when it enters the battlefield, you draw 3 cards and then it taps for 3 mana. It costs 6, which is a lot, but 6 mana, draw 3, make 3 colors.
Yeah, so
It's pretty strong.
It's very strong.
Yeah.
It has a downside that it can be stolen from you, but if your deck is full of flyers, they can't take it from you. Or you just sacrifice
Well,
it.
that's the thing is they can swing with 5 creatures and you only have 4. They'll take it from you because it just needs to have one unblocked creature.
One unblocked creature, yeah.
Yeah.
I tend to play it in decks that can sacrifice it or bounce it or reuse the ETB multiple times. And that's where it feels really,
good.
really broken.
Or blink it, right? Because you can blink
Yeah.
it in response to the trigger of giving it to them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've
And
seen
then
people do that.
If you can blink it, you can sacrifice it, bring it back to the battlefield. It's like welding this thing it just feels so powerful.
Yeah, I've seen people go off of it.
Phyrexian Metamorph this thing, draw 3 more cards, have 3 more mana. Oh, it's absurd.
I did not have it on my list. It's not my kind of card.
Yeah.
It's on my list, but I haven't used it in the way that you've talked about. I've seen it against me and I go, wow. And then that's why it's on the list. Because it's like, I mean, just 6 mana draw 3 is okay. But having the mana rock on top, and then if you add on the ways, of course, to make it extra good, it's quite spicy.
Yeah, it
So
definitely
that's your
takes
number
over
5.
games in some situations, which I've seen and always been like, that's cool.
Yeah.
I still don't want to play it, though.
Danger.
Yeah.
Nah, you just win the turn you play it.
There you go.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, boy, last pick 15.
There's a lot of good ones still.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing here is that we've determined that anything I don't pick is in the overall pool, and we still get to
We
play
have
with
honorable
it.
mentions.
So I don't have to go with anything boring like Gilded Lotus or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the Might Stone and the Weak Stone.
Oh, very similar.
That was my other one that I was going to take.
Yeah.
That rule.
Similar to Coveted Jewel, but better.
Yeah, I
Only cast artifacts with it. Ew.
Ew.
Barring.
Yeah, I mean, obviously very, very powerful, and the fact that it is a removal spell mitigates the cost in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And you need interaction in your deck. We're always talking about like the categories that you need. Hey, you need 10, 12 ramp spells and 10, 12 removal spells and 3 board wipes and 10 card draw spells or whatever. Well, this counts in 2 categories, which I think we've seen as a common theme, right? A lot of the stuff we picked was draws cards also.
Yeah.
Basically, I'd say most of the cards we've picked either also draw cards or just create more than 1 mana. And then there's only a few outliers like Cursed Mirror and things like that. Because even Coveted Jewel is what? Mana plus card draw.
Right.
Yeah. So this is another foundational category, though, removal. So I feel like it kind of fits in with this theme that we've established kind of accidentally of what we're looking for when we spend more than 2 mana on a rock. Every time you have it, it feels like it's useful and good. It kills a commander or something important and ramps you, and you never really feel like, well, this card's been rotting in my hand, sucks, I don't know how to use it.
Or it just draws you cards if you don't want to kill anything with it, right?
Yeah, that's true. There's no downside to like, although I've almost always killed things with it. But yeah, which is funny because I usually draw cards, but I think of it as a removal spell. Yeah, you're right. It draws cards. I never do that. It also is Coveted
also
Jewel.
draws cards.
Yeah.
What? No way.
It's very similar to Coveted Jewel, and you can do the same thing where like abusing the ETB, copying it, and it is legendary, right?
Yeah. One of the downsides I'd say of like high mana rocks, especially the ones that are up around like 5 mana plus, is that you don't have enough time left in the game to take advantage of the advantage it's giving you, right? Like it's going to give you extra mana for the remainder of the game, but because Commander's sort of sped up, the remainder of the game is not long enough to realize that advantage. Like in the old days, if a game was going to go 10 turns and I play this on 5, like I'm going to get 10 extra mana out of it or whatever over the course of the game. But now the games might end on 7. I don't even really get my initial investment all the way back. Or under good conditions, maybe barely get that back.
Yeah.
But the thing is, this removes something, and if it's their commander and slows down their strategy, it can often just sort of give you that extra turn where it's like, oh, slow down the player that's ahead, and that's another turn now I can realize the advantage of the extra mana that I got from it.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, making sure you're getting some other kind of value out of it to compensate for how expensive it is what's going to be important in putting big rocks into your deck. The other thing that we keep bringing up is synergy. If you're going to play a big rock, you need ways to untap it. You need ways to abuse the ETBs. You need a creature with 7 power.
Recur it. A creature with 7 power. Yeah, that one's tough.
Weld it.
So you really want to take advantage of the rock part of it. And it often means artifact synergy.
Right. You don't need any synergy to play an Arcane Signet.
Yeah.
Right. But you do need some amount of synergy for most of the rocks that are 3 mana or more.
Yeah. After the first few picks, of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Wow, all right.
So
Can we run down the final list here?
Final lists, what are your 5 chosen cards?
Well, I was just going to go top to bottom, 1 to 1.
Oh,
to
sure,
15.
yeah.
So it was Great Henge at number 1 for Jimmy, Midnight Clock number 2 for Rachel. Then it was Relic of Legends number 3 for me, Thrawn Dynamo number 4. Rachel then went with
Inspiring Statuary.
Oh, there it is at the top. Number 5. Jimmy at number 6 was
Basalt Monolith.
And Jimmy at number 7 was Commander Sphere.
Yep.
Then Rachel at number 8 was Cursed Mirror. And then me at number 9 was
Chromatic Orrery.
And then me at number 10 was
Glittering Stockpile.
Then Rachel at number 11 was
Throne of Eldraine.
Then Jimmy at number 12 was
Shaku.
Yep, Honor Shaku. Then
Sonic Screwdriver.
Rachel at 13.
Coveted Jewel.
Or Rachel at 14, sorry. Jimmy at 13 was Sonic Screwdriver. Coveted Jewel. And then me at number 15 was, what was the last pick? Mightstone and Weakstone, yeah.
Those are they. How do we feel?
I can't believe I missed Cursed Mirror. That's a big whoopsie from me. Big whoopsie from me there. But it allowed me to pick the Sonic Screwdriver instead at the end. Hooray. Yeah.
I'm still mad at my scout team for the Inspiring Statuary incident. Yeah, that was a big miss.
It does tap itself.
How high would you have picked it if you had it on your list?
I think it would have been in that second round of rocks for me, right about where you took it. So I don't think it bumps any of the top 3.
Yeah.
But 4 through 6, I think, somewhere in there feels right to me.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. It's because it's so narrow, but the upside is really, really high. So we're talking about a lot of rocks that we wished we could have taken.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to the honorable mentions and talk about a couple more cards that you would have taken next, or maybe you're just surprised nobody took.
Yeah.
What do you got, Jimmy?
One of mine that I was surprised that no one took was Nyx Lotus. It's a 4-mana rock. It does enter tapped, but it basically taps for your devotion to a single color.
Yeah.
We all know how good that land is, and it's
Nykthos,
and it's quite up there now too in price. Nyx Lotus, I think, does a really good job of impersonating it, but I think 4 mana is a lot, and the fact that you can't use it the turn it comes down is a bunch of unfunness. But it is really good. I don't have it in any decks, of course, but I still put it on here because this thing is pumping out 7-8 mana for you. You're in great shape.
I considered it. I didn't put it on my list because I've never seen it do anything.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I think it's a combination of all the stuff you said, because it reads as it should be powerful, but I've just...
Give you mana once you have stuff.
And the fact that you have to telegraph it is really tough, I think.
Yeah. It's way easier to remove than the Nykthos, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a big deal when a rock comes in and tapped. It just is. You don't get that rebate, which is a big part of the cost, especially when it's above 2 mana. It's just we kept saying well, if you do this, then it costs you virtually nothing. And the ability to wait for one of those spots because you know how your deck works is a big deal for you being efficient and sort of sequencing things. And the fact that a card like that, there's not much you can do to sort of get that rebate the turn you play it. It ends up being a pretty big deal.
Yeah, not to mention that the cards that untap artifacts are not contributing to your devotion. So it's kind of non-Bowie there too.
Yeah, the fact that it doesn't work very well with artifact synergy, which is a lot of what we've been talking about of making these cards really good. You have to have colored pips for it to be good. So it's hard to find a deck that wants a 4-mana artifact that doesn't do anything the turn that it enters and gives you a ton of mana, but only when you already have a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
If you get board wiped, this doesn't help you rebuild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've played Nyx Lotus Index. I like Nykthos itself. I like, those are the kind of, I build a lot of monocolor decks. But the fact that if you get wrecked, your mana production is also wrecked
Yeah, it
is
sucks.
pretty devastating.
Yeah, Nykthos is different because it is just a land that taps for
Yeah.
mana, so the floor is very low, whereas Nyx Lotus is
Comes in tapped, can't, if you get board wiped, it doesn't tap.
does nothing. Yeah.
If it only taps for like 1 or 2, also not so fun. Yeah.
I really like that point, though, of what you really need is a deck that cares about artifacts and is monocolored, kind of.
Yeah.
And, decks that care about artifacts, 30 to 35 cards in your deck are going to be artifacts, which are
Without
not
pips.
Yeah, they're not
Usually.
contributing to your devotion for the most part. There's probably decks that it will work good in, but it's so narrow.
Yeah.
How about you, Rachel? What was one of your honorable mentions?
I really wanted to mention Relic of Sauron. This
Oh, yeah.
is 4 mana, adds 2 mana of some assortment of Grixis mana.
Whatever you want.
So it only goes in Grixis decks.
Yeah.
And then it's 3 tap, draw 2 cards, and discard 1. This card's absurd. It's really powerful. I only have 1 Grixis deck. It's in it. It's great. But it only goes in Grixis decks, so it's pretty narrow, and I already had Throne of Eldraine, which is very similar.
Yeah.
So I didn't end up picking up Relic of Sauron. But one I wanted to talk about was Misleading Signpost. I think is a really fun card. It's 2 and a blue.
I'm like, what does that card
2
do?
and a blue for an artifact, and it taps to add blue. And when it enters, it portal mages. So
It
it
has flash.
it has flash.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing I like most about it is that it has flash. It's
Yeah.
really good in blue
Yeah.
decks where you can hold up a counter spell and be like, all right, I'll build my board as well, or I can defend myself that way. So it has a lot of utility and it can make for a really cool moment in a game. I haven't found the Misleading Signpost deck yet, but it's the kind of card that I am looking for a spot to put it because it has
Yeah.
really, really big moments, which is cool to get out of a mana rock slot.
Very cool. How about you, Josh?
I feel like I should like that card
More, yeah.
And I did look at it, but I didn't have it in my top 15 or so.
Yeah.
One that I looked at was Patriarch's Seal,
Yep.
which untaps a legendary, and I like tapping and untapping things, so I have a couple of decks where it matters, and that felt like an ability that I would want, but it's not something where you're like, boy, I need it, So it's kind of low down on my list. I felt like after the first 3, there was a pretty big gap, and honestly, like after the first 3, there was nothing where I cared that much as far as like, if these just didn't exist in Magic, it wouldn't affect my decks that much. And then after like the first 8 or so, it really fell off. And I was like, there's a lot of things in the mix down there with Sonic Screwdriver
Yep.
that are like all kind of fine.
Yeah, they're just like this.
But do I really play them? Not
Yeah.
really. Yeah.
I play quite a few of these. And it usually means that it has something stapled to it. Like I think Patchwork Banner is a really
Wait, you're
good example.
stapling your cards together? How
Yeah.
would you do that?
It makes
Value.
them better.
Oh, you can pick 2 and 1.
Like double sleeving,
It's
Jimmy.
just-
You have to
better.
staple. You have a staple in them. Okay.
Like Patchwork Banner says, when it enters, you choose a creature type. It says
Oh, yeah,
creatures
+1,
you
+1,
control
yeah.
of the chosen type get +1/+1, and it taps to add mana.
Yeah.
So this is 3 mana for an Anthem effect, which is
taps for mana.
relatively on right, and it gives you a mana back. So like those kind of things, I'll look at a 3 mana rock in that style of deck.
Yeah.
And will, as long as it fits into the curve, it does the thing late game, it does the thing early game. Those are the ones that I'm looking at when I'm considering 3 mana rocks. But obviously those are pretty narrow effects.
Yeah.
They don't go in every deck.
Yeah. And to me, like, whatever else is in the mix with that card is probably going to change your deck about the same amount. Like they don't like, it was hard for me to find a rock down past like the 9th or so one that I felt like had a big effect on how good your deck was. The one we didn't mention, and I did mention, but didn't pick that I think might fit into the category that is Gilded Lotus.
Yeah.
Which is just another, it's a very powerful card, but needs specific synergies. But when those synergies are going, it just can produce enough mana to sort of make a big difference in a game. And probably if I were to list the cards that I have, and it's not very many, it might be 3 decks, but of what we talked about today that I have the most, outside of those,
Is Gilded
like Great
Lotus.
Light Henge, I got in a bunch, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gilded Lotus is probably up there with
Yeah.
any of these, just because, again, if you can untap it, it
Ridiculous.
becomes like it becomes incredibly powerful. And there are just enough decks out there that like, listen, I just want one big thing to be able to untap, and then I can just kind of go off.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Another card I think is worthy of mentioning because Cursed Mirror was taken off the list is Machine God's Effigy.
Yeah.
It's an artifact that enters as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, but it's not a creature, it's just an artifact. So it kind of becomes like an enchantment almost if the creature has a good ETB or it just has a static effect and it just taps for blue. I just haven't seen it in play very much, but I know that the upside on this is very good because it is similar to Cursed Mirror where it's any creature, not just your own, but it's not an actual creature that can swing, which takes it quite far down the list. But as far as ETB goes, or whatever their static ability might be, like an exclamation or whatever, I feel like this is one of those cards that does have a lot of upside, but I just haven't seen it been used much to great effect yet.
Yep.
Prove me wrong.
It reads good.
Reads good. Reads very good.
I haven't seen it in play very much, so.
And then we also had one that it was actually our preview card, which is Crystal Skull, Isu Spyglass, which kind of has a Mystic Forge type ability, but it doesn't have the very important exile the top card of your library.
Right, you can
which
play
Mystic Forge
historic
does.
spells off the top of your library.
Historic spells, and it's mono blue, and it costs 2 blue. So it's just kind of got a lot of like, it's honed in really specifically, which takes away from its power level. But it does, in the right deck, it feels like this is one of those cards that when it goes down, you go, okay, that player has now the capability of winning or having an explosive turn to the point where we can't stop them.
Mm-hmm. There's one more that we could mention that I think a lot of people would leave in the comments if we don't, and it's Strixhaven Stadium.
Oh, yeah. Get some points, win the game.
Yeah. So Strixhaven Stadium is a 3-mana artifact that taps add colorless, and you put a point counter on Strixhaven Stadium. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, remove a point. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to an opponent, put a point counter on Strixhaven Stadium, and then if it has 10 or more point counters on it, remove them all, and that player loses the game.
Wow.
I have won a game.
Have you?
Wow.
With Strixhaven Stadium.
Did you have to remove multiple players to do so?
I did, yeah. So as long as you've hit...
How did not all that attacking just win?
I had very little creatures. It was a mono red token deck. Okay. So I didn't have a lot of good ways to like pump up my team. And so Strixhaven Stadium was like this sort of weird way that I could get it done. The funny thing about Strixhaven Stadium, though, is it doesn't play like a mana rock. It plays like a win con.
Yeah, for sure.
Put into play. Like you don't play this on 3, you're going to get killed.
Yeah. Or everyone's just going to want to stop those points from ticking up. Yeah, totally.
Sometimes they can work together. I was in a game once where they kind of work together to help the player get to the point to be able to kill somebody. Creates a fun little mini game sometimes.
Yeah.
I've only seen it play a few times.
Yeah, same.
It's always fun because it's a thing where you're like, how many points? What's going to happen? Like you're trying to. So it definitely changes the game in interesting ways.
I have been more impressed with it as a win con than I thought it would be. It reads like the kind of thing that you're just like, what? No. But hitting a player with like 10 Thopters is not a crazy thing in Commander and can absolutely remove somebody from the game.
Yep.
So I think it's worth playing in those kind of decks. Yeah. Again, a little narrow.
A little narrow, but a lot of fun.
They've been doing this thing a lot where they make a 3-mana rock and they staple something to it.
Yeah.
And I think we've shown pretty clearly where the line is in terms of like what makes it good and what makes it exciting to play and what makes it not enough to push you into a 3-mana rock. Is there anything you think that you wish they would do with more expensive rocks that would tip them a little bit more toward playable? Because it does seem like both of you don't really play them very much.
Yeah, unless it's Relic of Legends or Grey Henge or the first 3 picks, right? I would just rather do something else. There are enough cards at 3 mana that do multiple things. That looking at these 3 mana rocks, it just doesn't feel great. There's just not that much excitement about it that makes me, unless the deck again is very specifically going to be able to use that to great effect.
Yeah, I mean the classic sort of sequence of a game is get as much mana on the table and then use the mana.
Yeah.
And so it gets harder to do as you start to mix those things. And if you're just trying to get a bunch of mana out early, you just want the mana you're getting to be at the best rate.
Yeah. And as quick as possible.
Yeah, because then I will utilize that mana with my other cards.
Sure.
Which are usually the reasons why you're building the deck.
Yeah.
There's obviously exceptions, but I'm trying to think of what abilities and things they could give to cards. I think they got to be really careful because if you make it too good, then it gives everything you need. And that's not a great thing. Like it gives you mana and, the best ones are like, that gives you mana and cards. Yeah. It's like, we don't really want a lot of things that do those things.
Yeah.
And then the other ones have to be narrow then if that you're not going broad. And then we talk about it and we say, okay, yeah, that's good in very narrow decks. And it's like, so, which is fine. I think narrow is actually good for design. Because you use them in specific situations so all the games don't feel the same. Yeah. So I think they've done a pretty good job. I don't know. I'm sure there's a whole list of effects that are similar to the Kiki-Jiki effect of like create a token copy of a thing. Curse Mirrored, basically. Yeah. That they've got on a list somewhere that are cost about 1 mana or are worth about 1 mana. And you just start to run down those lists and, that's about what you're going to get.
Or it's like a Staff of Completion where everything costs you a ton of life to do.
Right. Yeah, or it's like give you a bunch of options and they're all slightly overcosted. Yeah. Or a lot overcosted. Or give you one option that's kind of on rate.
I think for me at least, a ton of options ones don't make the cut. Because
Yeah.
I don't want a card that does a lot of things badly.
Yep.
I would rather a good card.
And we didn't mention most of those cards. Only Sonic Screwdriver really got mentioned.
Yeah.
I agree.
So it's interesting. I'm sort of not against them printing a sort of stapley 3-mana rock, because that is a reason to take a 2-mana rock out of your deck and put in something a little slower, where it's like, yeah, it does more things, but maybe we're not accelerating stuff out just as much. So I'm curious to see what the future of these look like. They've been experimenting with them a lot, and I think we're due to get even more that are really sweet.
I could see it being like a 3-mana. There's already one that comes in and scries 1. I think that kind of like, it'll be a surveil rock, right? Or it's going to have something on the type line that matters. It's an artifact changeling or something, right?
Sure,
Like,
that's sweet.
I think those are ways to start adding. Again, like we've seen this, and they said it too recently, which is like they're designing into smaller, specific things so that they're not just making generically powerful cards, right? And that to me is a great sign, because it means that now when you build your deck and you're starting to hone it more and more, you can find the cards that really make it feel sweet, instead of just like every deck can now play this and it's great.
Would you play 3-mana rock, taps for mana of any color, surveil once when it enter?
No.
Surveil 2.
Yes. Maybe.
Rachel made a...
I don't think so.
Surveil 3?
I mean,
Surveil 1,
just
scry 2.
just 3, like just 3, ETB mill 3, like
Well, surveil 3, you get to pick the person.
Yeah, I know.
You get the best one out of it.
I don't, that doesn't motivate me to be a turn slower.
Man, I think...
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Surveil 3 might meet the threshold. There's a certain one, Surveil 10, right? You
Yeah,
do it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
insane.
so somewhere in there, there's a
Yeah.
range.
Maybe between like 2 and 3, it starts to get spicy. If it was like scry 3, I'm not even, that doesn't make me excited either. It's
Surveil is so much different.
Yeah.
So much better. Yeah.
Interesting. It has to be worth being a turn behind, and I guess having your next turn be much better is
What if-
nice.
yeah,
but-
Well, and there's a lot of graveyard decks, so at a certain point, just getting cards in your graveyard is similar to drawing cards, and I think
Sure.
there are enough of the format that, because I think they do want to be careful to create something that's stapley. Like, what's the use of making it so that everybody doesn't play whatever their signet is of their colors if all they're going to do is just put in this one card? We may as well just maintain status quo. Yeah. But if it's narrow enough that we see out of certain decks this one and these type of decks, and there's 10 different 3-mana rocks, I think that's actually kind of good for the format, right?
I feel like Flash is a thing they could start adding to mana rocks, just to
I
give
love
players
Flash on the
similar to like what you talked about the signpost, and then you could start stapling on like, what if your mana rock was kind of like Lutri, a single instance dual caster mage plus a rock.
Yeah.
Right, like stuff like that is really good. But then you're getting into that same thing, which is like now everyone's going to want to just play it. So you really have to figure out what that straddle is.
Rocks like that are interesting to me, though, because they do create the opportunity for opponents to misplay them, which I think most people would misplay that card, right? Like, it was a mana rock that had flash and fork something when it came in.
People would wait to fork instead of just flashing it in for the mana.
Yeah, they wouldn't just be like, nothing happened, I'm going to flash it out so I have more mana for the rest of this game. They would try and use it only in that way and just be like, oh, on turn 7, you could have had 4 more mana this game.
Yeah.
But you're waiting for the perfect spot to use that one card. And to me, I'm fine with the sort of like, hey, it takes skill to pilot type of cards, as long as their ceiling is not so high that everybody's got to run it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's what I'm getting at is it's just like, I like the idea of 3-mana rocks that you put in your deck to fill a slot that isn't just rock.
Yeah.
Because like, we're not excited to put Arcane Signet in our decks. That's not a card we're like, yes!
It just does that job.
It just goes in.
Yeah.
And if there's a card that says, hey, this is removal and it's also a rock, then you really
stones,
get a chunk of your deck back to design with, right? Because right now there's decks that you're like, I put in 8 2-mana rocks.
Now I need one less removal spell since this is 2, so I get one more synergy piece.
So now you get to open up more and more slots in your deck. So I'm comfortable with them pushing sort of down this, like I would like a 3-mana rock with a sack outlet on it. Even if it just was a manolith that said sack a creature, gain 1 life. Or something.
Wow,
doesn't
that's
exist.
pretty good.
Do this only once per turn, maybe.
Yeah, once per turn. Oh,
I mean,
speed or
if
whatever.
it taps, or if it's like, even if it just says sack a
market.
creature, nothing. Like sacrifice a creature, :
Yeah.
it would be a really interesting card. Now we've condensed and I think those kind of things.
Would you play that card? 3-mana rock.
Yeah.
Taps for a mana of any color.
Just
That's just a sack outlet.
Has 0, sack a creature for no effect.
I think so.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
I
Certain
would
decks
think
would
about
really
it.
like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, the fork mana rock couldn't cost 3. That'd be broken. It would have to cost 4.
Yeah.
For sure.
What if it's like modal?
I was thinking about it. I was like, everyone plays the
Yeah.
fork.
Yeah. I like what Josh said earlier about giving players the chance to mess up or to make choices. So if it's like a modal spell, enters in at 3 mana, you can either draw a discard or you can, let's say it's exile the top card of your library, or you can give something -1/-1.
Sure.
Like stuff like that is interesting because now it's like, okay, it's like Might Stone, Weak Stone territory, but smaller versions, less powerful versions of that card.
Yeah. I like the opportunity that more expensive rocks offer, and I hope that we get to do another episode like this in 2 years.
Yeah.
And
See what happens.
there's totally new ones on this list.
I wish
years?
I wish
know.
Pyromancer's Goggles could have made it.
I don't know how many rocks are going to
Because
come out with.
that kind of card is my jam.
Pyromancer's goggles?
Yeah, you get to duplicate a spell.
Oh, man, I used to love it.
Yeah,
Is
right?
that the forking rock, sort of?
Yeah.
It's 5 mana.
It's a good
so
forking rock.
It's a great forking rock. Get a spoonful of that one.
To the listeners, what is your first pick mana rock over 3 mana?
3
of
mana
course.
or up, yeah.
Who came out on top after this draft? Who won the draft? Is it Jimmy because he is the great henge? Did we miss any that you would have obviously snapped
I
up?
think the Great Edge is better than all my picks.
No, I know.
Combined, yeah, 100%.
I would trade all
It's like
5 of them.
7 cards
The
in
Great
one,
Edge.
dude. Oh my gosh, it's wild.
If you want to pick up any of the 3 mana rocks that we talked about here today, go to cardkingdom.com/command. Card Kingdom has a huge selection of singles and sealed product. You can pick up all of these when you're building a deck. Maybe you build a deck specifically around one of the cool synergy pieces we talked about today. Build a coveted jewel deck. It's really, really fun. Plus, when you shop at Card Kingdom, you know you can get a ton of cards all in one place. You're building a deck. You're not waiting on dozens of envelopes to show up in the mail. You just have the package and you get to start building. Plus, they've got a great team that knows Magic cards, so the cards that you order on the website are the ones that show up on your doorstep. And if something goes wrong, you've got a great customer service team to reach out to. Plus, you're supporting the show. So go to cardkingdom.com/command.
I feel like Coveted Jewel is the card that the people were screaming the most out while we were doing this because the Coveted Jewel believers are so passionate about that
it's a cool card.
Yeah.
It is a cool
They're like
card.
people from New York.
Yeah. Well, cover your jewel, cover your collection. UltraPro.com/command is the place to get all of the game accessories that you need to make your battlefield look awesome. Whether it's the sleeves, the dice, the playmats, or the wall scrolls to adorn your wall. They've got these cool new playmat holders as well that you can put on your wall to just showcase your favorite playmat. Maybe it's got a bunch of signatures on it because it's one of their Mana 8 playmats that you went to a Magic Con or a Command Fest with. Yeah, a lot of great options at Ultra Pro. One of my favorite parts is just going on the website and clicking on another area I've never been to and being like, what's up with the Pokemon stuff? And just seeing like, hey, that's a cool deck box. I didn't even know they made that. And so if you are just a card game player, ultrapro.com/command has a ton of stuff for you. It makes for great gifts as well. So check that out. And of course, supporting the show while you do it. They are always releasing new products. They got Apex sleeves that come out now with every single set. So there's going to be something cool and awesome for you to check out when you go to that website and you're supporting the show. ultrapro.com/command.
All right, and big thanks to our amazing team here at the Command Zone, which is Eric Lem, Rachel Kendra, Grav Galati, Jamie Block, Jordan Pridgeon, Jake Boss, Josh Murphy, Manson Lung, Karina Cruz, Sebastian Salazar, Evan Limburger, and Sam Waldo. Woohoo! All right, everybody, and thanks for watching. We will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Peace.
Thank you for your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com or ask us on Twitter @JFWong and @JoshLeeQuai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.